Welcome to Beyond Better, a podcast that explores a simple but profound idea. We all deserve to live lives we love, and that includes our work lives too. I'm your host, Stacey Ennis, an author, book coach, speaker, and long-time location-independent entrepreneur living in Portugal with my family of 4. Join me as I talk business, location independence, writing, publishing, and so much more, all focused on building a life that is beyond better. Welcome. I'm really excited today to get to have a conversation around fashion, sustainability. We're going to get to talk about entrepreneurship for social good, and we get to do it with a good friend of mine and somebody I really admire, somebody who's doing really, really good work in the world. So let me introduce you to this week's guest. Vanita Badlani is a sustainability warrior and impact entrepreneur leading LaBante London, a luxury vegan accessories brand dedicated to ethical fashion and environmental stewardship. She passionately drives change in the fashion industry through sustainable innovation and the power of conscious consumerism. Welcome, Vanita. I'm so excited to get to talk with you today.
Thank you, Stacey, for having me on your podcast. I think it's amazing. I really value your friendship. I really appreciate being invited here today. Thank you so much.
When I met you, I was instantly drawn to you. First of all, when we connected, I just thought she is amazing and I need to be friends with her. But also because I have a real interest in the work that you do in the world. When we met, I was wearing vegan heels, and I remember hearing you talk about your vegan fashion brand. And I had just kind of started to get into vegan fashion. I think I had maybe been buying vegan shoes and bags for a couple of years at that point, but I was learning about the different brands and how to buy. So before we even jump in, I'd love for you to just, for anybody that's maybe not sure of what defines vegan accessories, handbags, shoes, what does that mean? And how do you think about it as somebody who founded a vegan fashion brand?
It's a fantastic question because the word vegan fashion in today's day and age is quite abused. So I think it's very, very important to define that. So vegan fashion is anything which is in harmony with the planet and works with respect to all species. It's cruelty-free. So there are no animal-derived products used in making that item. And it is sustainable, which means that it works in sync with the planet rather than in friction with it. That's how I define vegan fashion.
I love that definition. And it got me thinking, when I first started shopping, quote unquote, shopping vegan, and I was learning about it, a lot of times I would actually end up just having to buy really cheap shoes at like a cheap shoe store because I couldn't find anywhere that had not like shoes without animal products. That was just my solve. I didn't know where to get it. Today, it's much different landscape than it was when I first started buying vegan accessories. But I love the way that you define that. I think it sets a standard for how we actually consume or buy vegan fashion. So I love that. Let's start with your early story, because you've had a couple of key moments in your life around your love of fashion, which I know was in your teens. You started developing that. And then your interest in vegetarianism and sustainability. Can you give us a little bit of your personal background that led you into this this passion that you have for sustainable vegan fashion?
Absolutely. So I will back up more than a few years. I was a teenager. My family worked in the garments business. We had factories all across the globe. So I would work in my uncle's head office in Hong Kong for all my summer holidays, right from 7th grade, all the way going to a university. So what I saw firsthand was beautiful fashion, which made me fall in love with it. But at the same time, I saw the other side to it, which was a whole lot of waste. So from a very young age, I knew that I'm going to be in fashion. I'm going to work in it and I'm going to make a huge impact by ensuring that the sustainability element or the waste element is killed. So that was almost a teenage passion. And today after this has been so many years, and I've been really working in sustainable fashion. It gives me purpose, it gives me joy, and it's something I'm looking to expand on a much larger scale. So when I finally did set up LaBante comes from Sanskrit, and it means to truly achieve. It means it's more about giving back to the planet than what we take from it. So it's about the circle of life. And I think that was important to have a brand name, which really wasn't the brand name and the brand are sort of interconnected. And the DNA of the brand comprises of the word Levante.
Hmm. I love that. It's just so interesting because I've known you for a few years now, but these are components of your backstory and your mission and your work that I've never learned before. So it's really cool to get to learn this about you. So I know that you had this interest in fashion and this awareness around the waste, which now I feel is much more known how much waste the fashion industry creates.
Yeah.
Where did the vegan element of your fashion brand come from?
Yeah, that's a great story, Stacey. So when I was 18 years old, I studied in India and I had to pass a wet market on the way to university. A wet market is basically where a place where they're full of live butcher shops. So they have caged animals, and on top of that, there are counters where God forbid, when I was passing by one of these butcher shops, a customer came in. The butcher would sort of take his hand, put it inside the cage to grab one bird, in this case, chicken, and there would be a unanimous shrieking like squawk which would fill the market. And at that point I would be pressing down on my ears and walking like this, but the sights and the sounds, the smells were too much for me. They're overpowering. And I used to love eating chicken. I came from a non-vegetarian family, to overnight dropping it because I just couldn't take that anymore. So I knew that the vegetarian element or the cruelty-free element was very important for me, because I was quite young, but I could sense the fear and I could sense the anguish that the animals were feeling at that time. And this was, just a chicken. But to see higher species animals being butchered was too much for me. So it was a very transformative experience for me at a very young age, which actually turned me vegetarian overnight.
Hmm. Wow, yeah, I can see that in my mind's eye as you describe it. And I had a similar not quite what you're describing, I had a similar experience here in Portugal where I was taking my kids to the park, and it's just we're in a very rural area and there's a lot of farms around and things like that. And this guy just came out with a chicken and like put its head in a bag and just killed it like right there. And when you witness that, you know, that it's hard to really put into words, what that is like to like witness an animal actually dying. And um I think it says a lot about your character that that extended into your eating habits and also your business that you run today. And I love, I mean, just knowing you for these years, I also know how passionate you are about this because we've had many conversations over the years about vegetarianism. I would love to talk a little bit about your. I know we learned about the background of Labante's name and your kind of purpose behind that. Um, Tell us a little bit about how your mission in Labante extends from how you run, lead the company, all the way to the bags that you produce and that customers get to carry around. And I'm sure you get to spot around London and beyond.
Yeah, it's a really good story. So before we go into, let's talk about the mission first. So I think the mission is very important in any business. So in our case, it's for LaBante London's mission is to be world's leading, socially responsible, sustainable, cruelty-free brand. What that translates into is that the first thing what we would do is create products that are in sync with the planet, which are in harmony with the planet, and to serve people with beautiful, sustainable items that do not create any friction in the world. So when they enjoy LaBante London product, they know without a doubt that they're not harming the planet, which I think is something quite important, especially in the fashion industry. The third part of that is to be a thought and execution leader in sustainable innovation. So to be on the forefront of innovation rather than the far side of it. And another part of it is also to really spread the message of sustainability across the world, especially in a day and age like today, where you have fast fashion brands like Shein, Temu. These are valued at $66 billion companies. They have the fastest IPOs. It's crazy the amount of fast fashion that's ruling the world. So in this kind of environment, I feel that the role of a brand like LaBante London is far more important than it even used to be, especially in this day and age. And then, of course, the other element of our mission is to give back to the planet. So in terms of planting trees or supporting charitable organizations which do good on the world. So that really is our mission. Now, this translates to every part of the process in terms of product. So right from design to sampling to production, all of these items or all of these steps are looked at. So right in design, we look at what are the materials that we would use, what would be the factory that we would use for that, what is the process of transporting those materials to the UK or the US, and how will the packaging look? Are those biodegradable? So all our packaging is completely biodegradable. We don't use virgin plastic at all. We're pledged plastic free. What that means is we don't use any of those nasty materials. PVC we've never used. A lot of vegan fashion brands talk about and use PVC. That just doesn't happen with us. We look at sustainable innovations and where we can use innovation to create new products. So there is every element of the mission then feeds into the product that we create. Or even our swing tags, if you put them into a little potted plant and water it, it grows into a little mint plant. Now,
What?
yes.
I love that so much.
Yes. And I'm very proud about it because that level of attention to detail is not what brands do. Everything is about profit. Everything is about ROI, but we go above and beyond. And that's important, especially when the mission is so strong, the product has to be in sync with that.
Mm. How have you balanced that as a business owner? Obviously, as a business owner, you want to grow your brand, you want to reach more customers, especially because your mission is so important. It's not just about the bag that somebody buys or, the passport wallet or the shoe. It's about your mission in the world and bringing these sustainable products to their doorstep. How do you balance the cost of production that it takes to have that mission extending all the way through the whole cycle of a product to market and actually even delivery, including those tags, with I'm sure big aspirations and growth goals, where I'm sure there's some tension there. How have you navigated that?
You're absolutely right, Stacey. I think the challenges in the business have been quite a bit, especially with the rising costs of materials. So that is a huge challenge. There's three elements to this. Let's talk about that. There's one which is pricing. There is the greenwashing in the industry, which really is so rampant. And then, then the third part is the balance between the cost and profitabilities, the production part that you mentioned. So if we look at it in three buckets, the first is, we had the pricing element. There has been a huge amount of innovation in sustainability. But what that means is that the newer materials that are available are much more expensive than the traditional materials which were available. It is a very hard balance to create beautiful products and still keep them accessible for the normal consumer. It has made it has been hard. I am going to be very transparent about that. So when we introduce new products, we tend to do it in new innovations. We introduce them in smaller products, which we then test in the market. So I was telling you that before we started today. We have these beautiful travel wallets and travel gifting items, all made sustainably with 100% plant-based leather. And then that's a balance. On the other element, we have more expensive bags. But creating a strategy for positioning and still keeping it accessible has been the hard part. But to counter that, what we're looking at doing is sort of scaling up. Because when we look at the landscape, a lot of the brands who call themselves luxury brands in our space are using materials like PU, which is not that great for the planet. While our materials are so much higher because we're using biodegradable leathers and we're using plant-based leathers, so much higher. But we're going to have to increase our prices. And that's something that we've had internal reviews on and looking at strategic repositioning in 2025. So that's one element. The second element is the supply chain was very badly disrupted during the pandemic. What that meant is that most factories who were producing leather accessories turned into PPE factories and started producing massive PPE equipment. After the pandemic, they sort of moved back. But that actually allowed us a very good window of moving away from the Far East into India and Portugal, where there's such a higher level of transparency with the ethics. Our workers take Saturdays and Sundays off. They get maternity wages. They have a really good insurance policy if something were to go wrong. The level of transparency and the ethics that I get from our newer suppliers is just so much different and higher than I ever experienced in the Far East. So something for me has been a very positive move. Um, so we have looked at those elements. So the third element is the greenwashing. Now, the amount of greenwashing that has just substantially increased because vegan leather has become a buzz term. So you have everybody from luxury brands like Gucci claiming that they've introduced vegan handbags, but you walk into their store and the store assistants have no idea that they've introduced a vegan bag. To mass scale brands like Calvin Klein who say this is vegan leather. Oh, because they just made their PU option, their fake leather option, the vegan option. How convenient is that? Nobody has any idea of whether actually the glues in that were cruelty free or not, because a lot of the glues use animal fat. Nobody knows of what those dyes contained. So there is so much greenwashing that for brands like who were the original or the OG vegan brands, they've had to compete against these big boys who are bringing huge pockets. And really, the marketplace has become changed because Google ads and everything have become so much more expensive because these guys are bidding on the key terms for the vegan leather brands. So a lot of vegan leather brands have actually gone under or shut shop. A lot of my friends have had to close their businesses because they can no longer compete in a market where these large guys with their big pockets are really trying to eliminate competition. There was a case where it was one vegan brand who was sued by a leather consortium in Germany, and she fought that and she won just because she used the word leather. And they said, oh, it needs to be used only for animal skin. How can you use it for anything else? And she won that. But the amount of financial pressure that must have put her under is not fair. And a lot of people talk about leather being the sustainable option. But let me tell you, there's about, for every kilogram of plant-based leather, it's 2 kilos of carbon dioxide in the plant, which is goes into the planet, versus 27 kilos in leather. And they dye it with so much chromium and so many chemicals, it doesn't biodegrade for thousands of years. It's sitting in the landfill. So what natural leather are people talking about? It's just leather consortiums who have such amazing contacts with politicians and regulators. And it's really like a whole greenwash story. Like, you remember the Got Milk campaign in the US in the 70s. It's similar
Mhm.
because these are just wealthy um, consortiums which just have money to burn.
So many things about those 3 points really resonated with me. I think a layer that I will add to that I'm thinking about in relation to in relation to pricing and greenwashing is that those larger brands can also price their items less. And I think that the underpinning of all of that is a consumerist mindset where it's like we need more, 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 rather than making really thoughtful minimal purchasing decisions. I personally, I would rather have a nice bag that I really love that I know is going to last, rather than five that like in equal spending. Like I could maybe spend and get that many. I just prefer to have less items in my life, but that is not the mindset that most of us have been raised in.
Absolutely. And that's, there's proof in that, right? You have a brand like Shein, which is valued at 66 billion. It's got one of the fastest IPOs. In 9 months it went into IPO. I think that's ridiculous. uh, that's nearly 1 in 7 people on the planet wearing fast fashion. And that's not even possible because most of the, a large percentage of population in the world is in poverty, or it's just so much higher, the numbers of fast fashion. And I think social media has actually contributed to the growth of fast fashion, just because you need to look different um, in every video you post. There's a lot of pressure on the youngsters nowadays to give a certain image, which not
Mhm.
is not necessarily the best for the planet or for their mental health, actually.
It's funny because literally as I was getting ready today, I put on this shirt and I was like, I wonder how many of my podcast episodes I have worn this shirt in because I keep a very minimal wardrobe. And I rather have nice quality, less nice quality pieces than to have a lot of stuff. So that made me chuckle as you said that. It's so true. Um, I want to talk about how to buy good vegan stuff, because one of the big challenges that I faced, I mean still face when I'm looking at various ethical sustainable vegan products, is knowing that it's going to be good quality. And I'll give an example of something that happened to me recently. I will not name the brand. Really cool, it seems like such a cool brand, but I bought some shoes. They were $180, I think, US, somewhere around that. So they weren't crazy expensive, but they were not cheap shoes, right? So in my mind, when I buy like sneaker type shoes at that price point, I would expect them to last for a while. And I think I don't think I had worn them more than maybe 10 to 12 times. When I was putting them on, they ripped, like the seam ripped on the shoe. I wasn't pulling, I just gently, did the normal thing where you kind of like hold the back of your shoe and slide your foot in. Laces were undone. It wasn't like I tugged or anything, but it ripped. And that has not been the first time that I've had that experience with vegan products where they look really beautiful or the company has a really nice mission, but when you actually purchase the product and use the product, it falls apart actually pretty fast and doesn't really have as much life in it. And then on the other side, there's amazing companies like yours that um, follow that mission and are also good quality products that are going to last you. So, as consumers, maybe somebody's listening to this and maybe they know a little bit about the problems going on in fast fashion, but maybe this episode has enlightened them a little more, and they'd like to start making some different purchasing choices. How can somebody be a discerning consumer if they want to buy sustainably, they want to buy vegan, they want to make like vote with their wallet with the purchases that they make?
I think that's a great question, Stacey. And unfortunately, it's not an amazing answer. There is not enough regulation in the fashion industry to really stop or prevent brands from greenwashing. Unfortunately, the onus lies on the consumer to do their research, which means checking labels, B, understanding what materials the brands are using. So a lot of vegan brands, people who call themselves vegan fashion, are using PU or PVC. That's not great for the planet. If you are looking at what materials they're using and where are they producing, I think that's a very important element of that. Uh, if you're producing in countries which value transparency and ethics, that's usually better in terms of the sustainability element. But what are the also the background of the brand? What is the background of the brand? What is the purpose? And a lot of our customers tell us that they do research, and when they start peeling the layers, a lot of misinformation comes out. But unfortunately, I wish there was a straightforward answer, but really it's up to the brand, up to the consumer to do the research, which is, checking the website, looking at factories of where the production is and what materials they use. That's really what's important. And, if you think about it, if a brand is calling themselves vegan, there are a couple of cruelty-free brands, but then they're using some sort of leather at the background. It happens. And we've noticed in our research, there are brands which call themselves leather, or they call themselves slow fashion, and then they go ahead and they do a collaboration with a major fast fashion brand like H&M and Zara, and we're like, okay, then. So there's a lot of peeling the layers involved, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's interesting because I personally find that's true across almost every product, right? So at the moment, I am trying to find a good skincare brand, and I've spent so much time looking at different brands, and every single time when I go, I always go, I read their founding story, I go and I read their environmental impact statement that they usually have. I'll read their ingredients statement. There's always something when I get into the research that I'm like, dang it, I thought this was going to be the one that I could order. And like, but then when you find one, you just keep buying from them. This is my experience because I know, I've done the research already and I'm going to be very loyal to that brand rather than I don't want to go spend another several hours. Which, by the way, I'm still looking for a good skincare brand. So, anybody listening has a recommendation, I'm all ears.
Yeah,
But it's tough.
it is tough. We've actually had few customers who sort of tried our brand, loved it, but just for the heck of it, tried a couple of other brands and come back to us. Like, we
Yeah.
hear these stories all the time. And there are a lot of consumers who are like, you know what? If even if a mistake happens in shipping or whatever, they're like, no, you were LaBante London, we've been with you, it doesn't matter, not your fault. Like, those are the kind of feedback that our customer service receives, and really makes me really happy. Just sort of, it clicks, and then you're like, okay, it's all worth it, it's all worth it.
Mm.
There'll be more people who sort of, are looking at embracing a sustainable, cruelty-free lifestyle, and I think that's awesome, because you need it. I mean, just with the global warming, and what's happening on the planet, it's not pretty. So it's very important for consumers to stand by brands who are actually doing the right thing, because they're very few and far in between left.
Hmm. So it's interesting, as you were mentioning about, how bad things are out there and how these choices do matter. It made me think about why we ended up scheduling this conversation today to begin with, which was a conversation that we had around our both of us really being oriented in our entrepreneurship toward social good. And that got me thinking about, when you're working in an industry where you are witnessing a lot of bad and a lot of things that are not right, or harm that's being done by other companies that are in your space, how do you stay, I don't know, positive and kind of mission oriented and not let that side of things get you down?
I think I think anything in the world has dark and light, right? We know that for a fact. There's positive and there's negative to any situations. I think if you just focus in on the positive and keep very systematically removing the negative, you focus in on what your bigger goal is. And I, as a person, tend to not look left or right. I tend to be one of those blinker kind of people, and I keep going. And that enables me to keep a very positive mindset, um, and systematically scaling it up, which obviously probably uh, it's hard sometimes. I am not saying that it's perfect. There are times when you're questioning the reason why you're still running a sustainable brand when brands like Temu and Shein are IPOing.
Mm,
Um, but then don't you? There is purpose and there's a goal. So it doesn't matter what's happening. You just keep looking at your goal because then you'll achieve it.
mm.
If you don't and you get sidetracked, then you're sure to not get there as quick enough.
I love that so much. And I think also, a lot of when you're in with other entrepreneurs, there's a lot of focus on grow, 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 revenue, revenue, revenue. Um, but I think that there is a lot of in that journey, that balance. When you do have a social mission in alignment with your business, it necessitates thinking about things a little bit differently because you do have to bring in a layer of, it's like, outside of the numbers, outside of the growth goals, you also have to be considering things that are just as important or more important actually than the bottom line as you're growing. I mean, it's just a whole other layer to business building and brand building.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Um, Question for you on your products, because I know sometimes when you get recommended a podcast episode or podcast, and I always say, okay, what episode should I listen to start with? So, if somebody is interested in your brand, I have two questions. One is, what product are you most excited about at the moment? And two, what's like your gateway product that people like tends to be maybe the most popular one or the one that people are like, they buy this one and then they're kind of hooked on your brand?
Um, that's a very good question, Stacey. I'm the most excited about the gifting items on our website. So let's back that up. We have a website labante.com and labante.co.uk. So if you come on those websites, you have a gifting section. I'm most excited about the travel retail gift sets that we've introduced. They are made from 100% plant-based leather, totally biodegradable. That means they hit the landfill in 6 months or a year. It'll be ashes to ashes.
Wow.
And it's
That's
a plant.
amazing. I
Awesome.
love that so much. That's so
Awesome.
cool.
I really feel excited about it. Um, and hopefully next year we'll use the fabric and launch it into further more products. Again, trying to make it reasonably priced and accessible is the challenging bit, but we're working on it. Um, and then the second part of your question, Stacey, our most popular products are the little Bella bags. We have these very cute small crossbodies, and they go into like little handhelds, and they also become crossbodies. And the second gateway product, I have to say it, is our laptop bags and our tote bags, because everybody's sort of putting it for daily use, whether it's work or travel. So these are my favorite products. It's hard for me to say favorite because the amount of attention to detail that goes into each design and each product is really phenomenal. So these would be the gateway products that we have, the travel retail gift sets on our website.
That's so fun. We'll be sure to link to those three. We'll link to that specific bag, your laptop, and like I don't know, satchel kind of bags, and then your gift section. And we were perusing that together before we started recording. And your gift sets are so cute. They just are the perfect holiday gift, I think.
Yeah, thank you. And all the packaging is really pretty. It's little white linen boxes, which are biodegradable, of course.
I love that so much. I mean, it does not surprise me at all that you have that extra layer of touch. I know for me, when I buy from a brand and they put in just that extra little thing that makes me feel like they have thought about me as the consumer,
Yeah.
Even I ordered from a supplement company recently and it came in from the US, and they included in the package this little piece of paper that was a temperature paper. And so you could know when it arrived to your house if the package had been exposed to extreme temperatures. So you would know for sure if your probiotic was impacted. So
That's so
and it will measure it as it comes. Those kind of little touches that, as a consumer, you just feel like they really thought about me and my concerns and my delight in your case. I love that so much.
good.
Vanita, I just truly admire everything you're doing. I think that what I hope people take from our conversation is one, be discerning in your purchase because and what you buy, because there actually is a real impact of that purchase that you're making. But the other thing I hope that they hear is that you, because I know you as a friend and I know this to be true in person, I hope it comes through in our conversation. You are practice what you preach. You truly care about this work that you're doing in the world, and you're so ambitious. I always hear these ideas that you're working on, and it's just been so cool to see your business thrive and the work that you're doing in the world. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Stacey. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation, and I'm very appreciative of you bringing me onto your podcast. Thank you so much.
Hmm. Well, thank you for you, the listener, for joining us. I hope this conversation inspired you. I will absolutely be sure to link to both the US and UK site for depending on where you are in the world. And, the holidays are coming up, so it seems like the perfect opportunity to get a beautiful bag from LaBante. Thank you, as always, to Rita for her production of this podcast. I truly could not do this without her, and I am so grateful. And if you were impacted at all by this conversation or just enjoyed listening today, if you would take a moment to rate and review this podcast, it makes a huge, huge difference in my ability to reach more listeners with the message of living a life that is beyond better. And I will be back with you before you know it.